Okay, we're live from Capitol Hill. We got a lot to go through. We got the great filmmaker Matthew Taylor in studio today. Jack Posobiec is out over at One America, the great news network. We're Real America's Voice. Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, also live streaming, also on John Frederick's Radio Network, now with a podcast with over almost 33 million downloads, or slightly over 33 million downloads. It's Thursday, 4 February, year of our Lord 2021. Raheem's in here as my wingman, as he always is.
As the afterthought.
As the afterthought. No. The great now he's got a competitive podcast. I got to watch. I got to be very careful about how I introduce him. Okay, Bob, it's pretty good to know that the War Room's podcast. You got Raheem's podcast is top 10. Rudy's podcast is almost top 10. Of course, we're the big gorillas. But
full spectrum dominance.
Full spectrum dominance. I want to go to Boris Epshteyn now. Boris, a couple of things we got to get to because I hear there may be a sea change happening as far as what we're going to be talking about next week on the trial. I think some folks are starting to become aware now that the House of Representatives dropped a letter on the president saying they're calling him as a witness in the prosecution. I want to go, though, first to what happened last night and then today for the MAGA movement, for the Republican Party. This is Liz Cheney, who they're having a state meeting on Saturday. Good folks out in Wyoming are taking a whole Saturday to bring all the counties in that have censured her and a bunch who have asked for her resignation. Walk me through this Liz Cheney situation, sir.
Here's what happened with Liz Cheney. Steve, thanks for having me on. Hello to all the patriots in the studio and, of course, the MAGA Brain Trust. What happened with Liz Cheney is they had a long meeting yesterday of the Republican conference, and then they had a super double secret vote, silent vote, and Liz Cheney got to keep her job. And there were only, I think it was 145 to 61. Somebody can correct me on the actual numbers if I'm off there by a couple, but huge, break there, huge difference. And Liz Cheney was widely kept as the number 3 person in the Republican conference. And what is, I believe, a slap in the face to the rank and file Republicans, a slap in the face to the people of Wyoming. And I absolutely do not understand what role Liz Cheney could have as a leader in the GOP House conference if she was whipped for an impeachment of a Republican president and President Trump. And she, by the way, did not apologize during that meeting yesterday. And now you've got all of the
okay, hang on, slow down.
How great that is.
That's great. That's what I want to get to. You talk about slap in the face. It's a slap in the face of Donald J. Trump. I mean, she's the one that said he called the mob to D.C., he got the mob worked up, and then he kind of weaponized the mob and let him go, which is the charges, as Raheem Kassam points out, on page 2 of their theory of the case. So it's a slap in the face to President Trump. But then again, there's another slap in the face today. Lindsey Graham keeps saying, and Sean Hannity last night, he's jumping on our guy Matt Gaetz. He says, why did you say today you were going to resign? That's ridiculous. We should just pretend this thing doesn't matter. Then today, after he's walked into the trap, they closed the trap by dropping a letter that says, we're calling you as a witness. Please explain this, what's happening, Mr. Boris Epshteyn.
So on the Liz Cheney thing, I was off by one vote, 146 to 61. Liz Cheney kept as the number 3 leader in the House, the chair of the GOP House Conference. Of course, as you're saying, a slap in the face to the leader of the MAGA movement, which is President Trump. Liz Cheney's words are being used in the prosecution against President Trump. And then today, Jamie Raskin sent a letter asking for President Trump to testify, to be a witness. The president has already responded through his attorneys, saying that he will not participate in this unconstitutional charade as a witness. So he's already responded. Jamie Raskin's got no subpoena power there, so I don't see it going anywhere further. Just a publicity stunt, which is exactly actually what President Trump's attorneys called it. I like the strength of the letter in response almost as much as I like the letter by President Trump today when he resigned from the Screen Actors Guild Union. I thought that was full of punch. Really vintage Donald J. Trump. If anybody hasn't read it, please look it up. Goes through the president's long career in TV and then ends with the fact that the union has done, quote unquote, nothing for him. President Trump obviously on fire, full of fight from Mar-a-Lago.
This calling it unconstitutional is technically correct. You're right. It's unconstitutional. But is that going to work after they do 3 or 4 days? You see what they want. They want blood. That's why they never mentioned they were called. They said they're not going to have any witnesses. Then they call him as a witness. Is this thing going to play just calling it unconstitutional. Lou Dobbs says last night you should just not even participate. Is that actually next week after they've had 3 or 4 days of their prosecution where it reads like a film script? Do you think that is, can you leave these charges, these over-the-top charges they're making of the president, which is basically saying you're an accomplice to murder? Is that going to Hackett just continue to sit there and say it's unconstitutional, so we don't care, we're not going to say anything?
Steve, to quote Bill Clinton, it depends on what the definition of is. That was my best Bill Clinton I can do for you. It depends on what a win is here. If a win is getting out of this trial without a conviction, that's going to work.
Okay, hold it. Stop, Boris, stop.
Well,
no, stop. No, I'm not going to let you finish. I'm not going to let you finish because we know he's not going to. 45 people already said it was unconstitutional. They can't vote to convict. So we know the max votes he's got is 5. Okay.
Right. If a win is escaping without a conviction, that's going to get you there. But if a win is not letting the Democrats prosecute President Trump in the eye of the American public, toxify President Trump and MAGA supporters, then you cannot just go in there and say, oh, it's unconstitutional, we're not paying attention. Because then the Democrats are going to go full steam, full bore with this offense of he incited, he called a mob using Liz Cheney's words, and then they will refer, as Raheem and I were actually going back and forth a little bit today on text, they're going to refer to this quote-unquote big lie, the Nazi term that they've been using to denigrate and toxify Republicans. So if a win is getting away and then not worrying about legacy, not worrying about, as you've said, anybody who's ever worn a MAGA hat being cowed down and denigrated and disrespected when they're at a soccer game at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, you can get away with it. But if a win is staying strong, continuing to fight for our movement and growing the movement, which grew by 20% from 63 to 75, right about 20% in 4 years, then you have to fight on the 3 verticals that I've consistently talked about. The fact that this is unconstitutional, the fact that there was no incitement, the president said peacefully and patriotically marched to the Capitol, and then the fact that there was real election fraud, voter fraud. Something that I haven't seen a lot of coverage on today is the fact that Mark Elias, the Democrat super lawyer, is now claiming that there was machine malfunction in the New York race that was just called for Claudia Tenney. Again, a Democrat calling for an investigation into voter machine malfunction, claiming that there was significant difference.
Hang on, we don't talk about machines on this show. I don't want to get. I'm just kidding.
No, that's right. We don't. It's actually Mark Elias that does, and it's their court filings that do. Boris, it's such an important point. In their elections, they're allowed to talk about the machines. They're allowed to, and Boris, correct me if I'm wrong. They literally use the frame "change votes." In their court filing, but when we do it, when our side does it, when all the poor old people who are getting persecuted, our side do it, insurrection, treason, all of this stuff. Boris, am I wrong? They use the word change votes.
I think
if you look at the filing, you could read Mark Elias's filing. It reads like the filings we had in Arizona and other states, but he's a Democrat, so he's allowed to allege all these things. He's talking about thousands of ballots potentially being changed. Everything he says is what they've accused the Republicans as promulgating a big lie about. So it shows you that there's absolute hypocrisy in this country. There's a total double standard, but we've known that. And that is why, Steve, to your question, we have to stay strong, because if we don't, we are going to be bowled over by these cynical, corrupt Democrats.
I just want to talk about cynical, corrupt Democrats. Make sure everybody in the audience understands. Mark Elias is the senior partner at Perkins Coie, which is, as you know, from following Raheem Kassam back in July when we started talking about the Transition Integrity Project. They laid out, ladies and gentlemen, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. They laid out exactly how they were going to steal this. They laid it out in the Transition Integrity Project. We went around the country and gave lectures on the plot to steal 2020, where we laid out exactly what was going to happen from election night, having the lead, having the mail-in votes come in, the machine, all of it. Okay, and Mark Elias is not the senior architect. His senior partner is the architect. The retired guy is the architect of that. But he is a guy that is the execution guy. He was the guy that a couple of years ago in Coleman's race out in Minnesota won that with 300 votes. This guy is a hammer. And so to have him come in today and really take Boris's filings and just kind of scratch himself out. And so poor Claudia Tenney. Claudia Tenney is a fighter up there in New York State. I just want to go to one other thing is about you said a win is the legacy and everything like that, but the biggest win is to make sure that President Trump is eligible to win re-election in 2024 when he will start his second term, right? This is the whole thing about being found guilty or convicted at this trial. And you do agree with me, there is zero probability since 45 senators already voted it's unconstitutional. They then cannot flip and say convicted. So we have, I just want to make sure, you agree with me, there is zero probability he will be convicted by the Senate and therefore not be able to run in 2024.
Well, I don't believe anything's zero, but I would say 99.999% chance that the president is not convicted. Because, with these politicians in Washington, D.C., the uniparty, as you referred to correctly, you never know. They could flip themselves. Joe Biden went from saying he's going to give $2,000, now it's $1,400, and these memory hold the fact that he promised $2,000. So I wouldn't say it's 1,000%. I would say it's, there's a tiny fraction of a chance there. But this is effectively a free option to make the case on why President Trump, A, did not incite, and B, the election fraud, voter fraud that happened across the country. Something that I want to say about Mark Elias is Mark Elias filed as an attorney in pretty much every single case that the Trump campaign or anybody related or anybody even supporting President Trump had in any state across the country. Mark Elias filed for an appearance in those cases. He is somebody who is pretty much ubiquitous across this fight. And now you have him in New York making an argument that machine voting is full of fraud, which means that mail voting is full of fraud.
I think
think about it. Just like Bezos making that argument for Amazon, that mail voting cannot be trusted. You need in-person voting. Do as I say, not as I do.
I think that's
what the Democrats and the left is all about.
I think there's going to be a big sea change tomorrow in how we view President Trump making this case. I think some things are going to happen over the next 24 to 48 hours. Remember, in the war room, we're never wrong. My question to you, Boris Epshteyn, with your knowledge of the guys that could argue Wisconsin, that could argue Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and your knowledge of the evidence you've seen, is there enough time? You got a minute. Is there enough time available that President Trump changes his mind, the teams could still be put together and be ready to file briefs on Tuesday?
Absolutely. We had a great team in Wisconsin with Judge Trupis and others, Bill Bach. We had a great team in Pennsylvania, Bruce Marks. Great team in Georgia with Smith. All across, great team in Michigan, Thor Hearn. Great team in Arizona, Jack Willenchuk. All across the country, Nevada, Jesse Banal. All across the country, we had great lawyers who know this inside and out, who want to fight and are ready to fight at a single day's notice, at a single hour's notice, at a single moment's notice for election integrity in this country. And again, I believe that case has to be made because the Democrats are asking for it to be made. They included it in their prosecution. We've got to include it in our defense.
Boris, what's your coordinates on social media?
Thanks so much, Steve. At Boris EP on Twitter, continuing to lose followers. Maybe let's juice those up a little bit. Instagram at Boris_Epshteyn. Boris_Epshteyn on the gram. At Boris EP on Twitter. Stay strong. God bless. Great times.
Thank you, Boris. Okay, next we're going to have the guy that brought the receipts, Peter Navarro, who did the 3-part report. He's now combined it into one. It's got a foreword or introduction written by the great. Well, we'll let you guess who wrote the foreword when we come back. We're going to have Peter Navarro next to talk about the Navarro reports. This is the underpinnings of what President Trump's argument will if they decide to take that third vertical and actually argue the evidence in the big steal. Next on War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We are taking a look at foreign policy. Just one day after President Biden was inaugurated, China announced sanctions on 28 Americans, many of whom were part of President Trump's administration. The list includes former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, former White House advisor Steve Bannon, and former trade advisor Peter Navarro. Joining me right now in a Fox Business exclusive is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Secretary, thanks very much for being here. What has been the fallout from the sanctioning of you from the Communist Party?
Well, Maria, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. The sanctioning that took place was intended to do a single thing. It was to send a message to the next administration, the Biden administration, that says, if you're serious about protecting America, American sovereignty, American jobs, American wealth, all the things that matter most to the people that are listening to your show and watching, you will be punished. And so they were trying to send a message to the current Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, saying, careful, don't do the right thing for America. Don't protect Americans. If you do, you will personally be punished. That was the message. It's kind of a badge of honor in some ways. We took seriously 50 years of failed policy from America flipped on its head, and we put a real premium on protecting Americans from the threat that the Chinese Communist Party presents to each and every one of us.
We had the Maria Bartiromo this morning about the sanctions on our next guest, Peter Navarro and myself. We also were trying to get some of President Trump's or Biden's speech today over there where he didn't say anything about the Chinese. I want to go now to Peter Navarro. Now, Peter, since we had that blown cold open, I want to ask you about the I don't need to jump into China. We just got off with Boris. They're talking. I think there's a sea change happening that people are more focused. I want to say in the live chat, somebody said they're not listening to the war room. President Trump's not listening to the war room because he's not going to attend. No, please, you got to pay attention. He's not going to come up as a witness. He was called as a witness by the Democrats, which we said they were going to try to do. And Lindsey Graham swore to him it wasn't going to happen. Okay? What we have, he can't come as a witness, should not come as a witness, should not participate in what they want to. He should come as an advocate, as part of a team like with Matt Gaetz. If Matt Gaetz stepped down from Congress and represented with his other lawyers, let them argue the constitutionality, he would come and actually take the Peter Navarro report and Matt Brainerd's report and Phil Klein's report and all the things you've heard over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, the stuff that's included that they say is a big lie in the New York Times in the 77 days, the stuff they say is a big lie. We say, no, that's not correct. These are facts, and that's the big steal. And you can get it now in one place. Peter Navarro's taken all three parts of his and put it into one thing on the Navarro reports. Also, the great Steve Cortez. He was going to write an introduction. What he decided to do, he wrote a Washington Times op-ed. It's on the Washington Times. We're going to put it in the live chat. So please pay attention. We never said he should come as a witness. That's what he turned down. Please pay attention. He needs to come as an advocate and make his case and use he should walk in with the Navarro report. There should be a copy on everybody's desk. There should be 2 copies on Mitt Romney's desk, right, with a highlighter right there, yellow highlighter for Mitt, in Mitch McConnell. Peter Navarro. Walk me through. You're ready to go. If the president makes the call over the weekend, the thing starts Tuesday, Wednesday. We got the lawyers lined up. Are you ready to go as support to provide a support function to show the receipts?
Let me break a little news here, Steve. Today, because the Capitol Hill is like the green zone, it's all razor wire. So I took a stroll over by Nat Stadium, and I saw Matt Gaetz actually warming up in the bullpen. He was throwing 100 miles per hour on the gun, and he seems ready to go. and he had a ball in his right arm, but he had the Navarro report, all 3 volumes, in his left. And Steve, this Mr. Raskin has done the Republic a great favor.
Amen.
Because
Amen.
If this doesn't get the attention of President Donald J. Trump,
Amen.
to the fact that Lindsey, I can't even, I don't have words for how crazy Lindsey Graham is trying to walk Donald Trump into a trap. If the president hasn't got the message from this invitation from Raskin that he has to go up to the Senate and present an affirmative defense, then I don't know what is. So this is a big day. This is a day of history. Here it is. We could go there tomorrow and present the case. All the work's already been done. And I think it's fair to say, because I have a lot of people helping me with this, that the 3 volumes of the Navarro report, The Art of the Steal, The Immaculate Deception, and Trump 1, basically provide all the evidence you need. Now, if you get that report into the record, and then you bring state by state by state the number of people to testify, this is a slam dunk case that this election was stolen.
Okay, the president has a great saying. You've heard it all the time. No games. No games. Says no games. The Democrats are playing games. Lindsey Graham's playing a game. The Democrats are playing games. This thing we're asking is trying to be cute. Oh, we're going to call him, and now they turned it down. Yeah, he doesn't have the thing. He's afraid of being sworn in. He's afraid of doing it under penalty of perjury. It's all lies. It's a big lie. No, it's a big steal. Now, I do want to pivot. We'll get back to this because
same usual stuff.
We're burning daylight here. It opened up with you and I have been sanctioned personally by the Chinese at 4 minutes into the Biden administration, 12:04 p.m., Pompeo, a bunch of other people, Pottinger, all the hammers, right? Now, you heard Biden. Biden gives his big speech today. There's more time spent on talking about Americans as domestic terrorists as there is to this. I think he had one line about the CCP. Yeah. He had one line about the greatest existential threat the country's ever had, the entire direction of the Trump administration to sort this mess out that Bush and Cheney and Obama and Biden and all of them handed to the American people. And Peter Navarro and these patriots in there, the America First, he has one line in there. This is a big foreign policy thing. He goes on and on about climate change and national security problem, and he talks about more about Americans as domestic terrorists. Dr. Navarro, since you've been sanctioned, and we do wear this as a badge of honor by the Chinese Communist Party, sir, what do you have to say?
It is a badge of honor. Well, I think that what's interesting here is if you look at like this background here, the one thing that Biden had in the speech about communist China was, hey, we're happy to work with them when we can. It was the same old globalist thing. But if you look at this, you got like you got the puppet master here in Xi Jinping, you got the puppet here in Hunter Biden, and you got the cash that puppet master gave to puppet. Right now, here's what the reward for is, and this is what's wrong with our republic. See, this is the reward. Simon & Schuster has, for those on the radio audience, I've got a picture of the cover of this book that Simon & Schuster's given Hunter Biden $2 million for, which is like a mittens compared to what communist China is. But here's the guy who really gets screwed in this whole thing. Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley. This was Josh Hawley's book. He was going to go just really head on, tip of the spear against the social media oligarchs. And what does he get? He gets canceled, Steve. And Hunter Biden gets even more money. And we know how Hunter likes to spend his money.
Hang on. I got it. Hang on. This is not. Hunter Biden sold out his country. The Biden family has been compromised by the Chinese Communist Party for cash money. And he gets a $2 million advance by Simon & Schuster on a book that he's already been writing. He sells out his country, brags he's working with the top spy on audio that Raheem Kassam, the guys, put up on audio. And he gets a $2 million. And Josh Hawley, a senator and a patriot, talk about the oligarchs. And what is it? Tell me what the Chinese are doing right now besides belly laughing. Navarro, you know them better than anybody. What's the CCP doing in Beijing?
Yeah, give me full screen again, Denver, if you can, because this cash here, Steve, you're absolutely right. What this cash went for, among other things, was basically to buy a company in Michigan, and China basically took that company whole and sent it over to Beijing. So we lost the factories and the jobs, and he did that over and over and over again. So, look, this turns my stomach. I mean, it works on so many different levels. The fact that the book publishing industry now is giving money to the Biden crime family, who essentially have sold out American jobs, technology, and factories at the same time that they're doxing and deplatforming and canceling American patriots like Josh Hawley. I mean, what is wrong with this picture? I think what's going to happen here, Steve, is there's going to be a tremendous backlash to this among the American people. I mean, we're split down the middle right now, but there's no American, even on the Democrat side, who's going to think that it's a really good idea to shower Hunter Biden with an advance for a book. And it says it's beautiful things. There's nothing beautiful about selling your country down the river to communist China and laughing all the way to the bank. So, yeah, Xi Jinping, he's happy about this. The question is he getting his 10% as the agent for Hunter? That's all I want to know.
Wow. Peter, give your social media coordinates, particularly the Navarro reports going back on tomorrow is going to be a sea change, I think, in this whole thing. How do people, they got to get the Navarro report tonight.
Bannon, let's even crash my server again. PeterNavarro.com. PeterNavarro.com. You can download the report there. And on Twitter, you can get it there as well. Real P Navarro.
Your backgrounds are getting to be legendary. That's Peter Navarro. That sanction thing's working out. That sanction thing's working out for you.
Come on.
God. Why does Denver not have? Why does Denver work? You got the great camera and the great backgrounds. I mean, we're a couple of schmenders over here. Peter Navarro, you're a rock star.
Hey, thanks, Denver. They helped today with getting a really clean transmission. Thank you, Denver.
Really, America's Voice is the best. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to come back with someone that's had to live under the boot of the Chinese Communist Party next on War and Pandemic.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, under the heading, you can't make this stuff up, there's a tweet out right now that Jerry Nadler denies Matt Gaetz' request to recite the Pledge of Allegiance before each Judiciary Committee hearing, calling it unnecessary. Jerry Nadler. Okay, I want to know, Raheem, first off, you guys, Natalie Winters, your team over at National Pulse, have been at the cutting edge of all this CCP stuff. Your assessment today, this is the big foreign policy speech. He goes to the State Department. Tony Blinken introduces him. With all the cloud over Blinken himself, the family, they announced today that, Simon Schuster, $2 million for the kid who was the bag man that took all the money. Where do you think we stand in this?
Massive speech if you are concerned about democracy promotion overseas. Democracy promotion, in inverted commas, overseas. Massive speech if you're concerned about LGBTQ rights in sub-Saharan Africa. Massive speech if you are concerned with Yemen. Not a massive speech if you're concerned with America First foreign policy. Really a counterproductive speech if you're concerned with the Chinese Communist Party. And quite a destructive speech if you're concerned with the deconstruction of the foreign policy establishment and administrative state. This really was a speech that said, hey, Trump was a blip. We're getting back to normal here in Washington, D.C. You're all going to get your disbursements. You're all going to get your
multilateralism.
Globalism's back, baby.
He spent, I think, 5 times more time on Russia.
Oh, yeah.
Than he did on 7 times more on Russia.
Who said that this morning?
Yes.
Who predicted
That's my
that?
point. And NATO and setting it all up. And the existential threat, I think, got one line.
Yeah.
Of the Chinese Communist Party. And remember, here's a code word, and Sullivan used it earlier. We got to compete more. No. Obviously, we have to compete. We're competitive. But that is their code word that you, the workers, are going to be ground down to basically compete like crabs in a bucket against Lao Beijing, against the slave labor of China. That's not what this is about. America First was saying, no, we're going to play by a different set of rules. Schmidt used this when I had this debate when I was brought to the Tom Friedman thing. They want to use this competitiveness. That's a misdirection play, ladies and gentlemen. It's a misdirection play. Sullivan's tipped his hand, and we're going to be all over these guys. We're going to jam these guys up so much. We're not going to allow them to get weak on the CCP. They want to be weak on the CCP because the CCP is their partners in the party of Davos, globalization project, right? That's what they want to do, is all this multilateralism crap, right? And we believe in alliances, but alliances where the allies have a dog in the fight. They're paying up with money. They're paying up with equipment. They're paying up, and they got their young men and women also standing tall. Okay.
So one of the critical pieces of data that I think people need to take out of this is the Trump administration attempted to lower refugee intake into the United States to about 15,000 people a year.
Yep.
The Biden regime is saying that they want about 125,000 people a year, with a particular stress on LGBTQ refugees being brought into the United States. And that was one of the key points of this speech today, which is particularly interesting given the fact that they are putting children in detention centers on the southern border again. And of course, there's no outrage amongst the establishment media. AOC has yet to say anything about it, and so on and so forth. And it's particularly interesting given the fact that they aren't really interested in Chinese dissidents or people who are trying to seek refuge from the Chinese Communist Party in the United States.
They're not too focused on democracy exporting to China either. You notice they don't bring that up to the CCP, right? They want to take that everywhere else in the world. They want to stick their nose in people's business, etc. except China.
Well, you've hit on something there, because it's a return to this soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yes,
What they
exactly.
want to do is target the Middle East and sub-Saharan Africa and say, oh, you poor folks, you can't think for yourselves. We're going to export our system to you guys. It's what's known as the soft bigotry of low expectations.
I want to bring in now Prince, an expatriate from China and part of the new federal state. Prince, you've been on the show many times throughout the spring and the summer talking about living under the CCP and what they were doing. How do you think Beijing views what happened today with this Biden soft speech, and also with Hunter Biden, the bagman between the Communist Party and his family, taking a $2 million advance for his memoirs?
Well, I think President Xi and the Zhou Nanhai, which is the Beijing, I think they're cracking open a champagne bottle and celebrating right now, as can be demonstrated by their aggressiveness in South China Sea and in the Strait of Taiwan. The CCP views this as a win for them because they finally, after years of trying, have someone in the White House that's not only willing to sell out America, but also American people, American interests, American corporations at the cost of the entire America First policy that President Trump and his administration has dedicated to. So I think Beijing is very happy about Biden right now.
Where do you see, by the way, this thing in Burma? You see all the issues around India. You see, the flights over Taiwan. The Bidens, canceling the executive order about the power grid. Do you feel that they're saying that they keep talking about we want to do an interagency process? We're going to have strategic patience. Everything from the Biden administration is soft and confrontation. Do you believe that Beijing thinks right now that, hey, the entire Trump legacy is gone and they're going to have an administration here that's basically going to go back to the old days of playing ball with a win-win strategic partnership?
I think so. I think, one of the hallmarks of the Biden foreign policy that he keeps talking about return to normalcy. Well, there's nothing normal about American foreign policy before Biden. It was stolen American out. Like you said, Mr. Ben, it was not. When we make alliances with our countries, it's all American soldiers in the front line. America is paying all the costs for these operations. So when Biden talks about going back to normalcy, he means going back to appeasement, to an era when America pays all bears all the burden, pays all the money, sends all the people, but gets nothing out of it. And I think Beijing sees a return to that normalcy. So I think that we're going back to appeasement. And as someone who have lived under the dictatorship of the CCP and who is a dissident here in America, I view the CCP as the existential threat, not just to Chinese people, but also to the American people. And I hear 2 or 3 lines about China in his entire foreign policy speech. So I feel very disappointed about that.
Prince, I love the fact you got the new federal state of China flagging back at you. Remember, that's the group, that a part of the diaspora that has bound and determined to bring rule of law and democracy to the Chinese people. Prince, very glad to have you on. The studio looks amazing. Look forward to having you on again in the near future. That's Prince. That's his nom de jour that he uses since he's under a lot of pressure from people in the CCP. You got breaking news?
One bit of good news that we had today is that British regulators actually stripped CGTN. That's the Chinese propaganda outfit.
That's their World Broadcast Center.
They stripped it of its broadcasting license today.
Wow.
So CGTN actually can't base itself out of the United Kingdom anymore.
That's massive.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
So we got to get more into that.
Yeah.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
I want to go quickly to Hunter Biden's book. I mean, it's embarrassing that Simon & Schuster would cancel Josh Hawley's and give Hunter Biden a $2 million advance. How big is Josh Hawley as he stands right now? Amy Klobuchar came up with a great, at least the beginnings of an antitrust bill today. She put forward, she's going to go after the tech oligarchs. But what does Josh Hawley mean as far as you're a tech guy? When you look at politicians, most of them don't know anything about this. Hawley's looked at as a kind of a new generation leader about this. When you see his book canceled and you see they're trying to suppress his voice, how does that strike you as a conservative?
Well, look, I think that the problem is this is part of a continuum. During the election, you had big tech black out one of the top newspapers in the country, New York Post, for covering Hunter Biden. The next stage that they have to hit is they have to hit the lawmakers that can now enact some of these things. So they got the press blacked out. They're going to go after Hawley. They're going to hit his book. And, of course, Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz have been very effective at bringing these guys to task. They know their stuff. They know the terminology. They don't get up in these hearings and go, they actually
Some of the
know.
questions are pretty embarrassing sometimes. The following questions.
I mean, watching those hearings is excruciating, to be honest with you.
Isn't part of that, Raheem, that all of them are taking PAC money? They're all taking PAC money from the oligarchs. That's why they don't have any tough questions?
Well, we did a story on the Pulse about 8 months ago laying out which conservative organizations take a lot of money from big tech organizations. And I tell you, I have never had that level of stress bear down upon me. No, not during Brexit. Not from the European Union, not from the political left, not from Marxists, but from people with nice big buildings on Massachusetts Avenue saying, how dare you tell the world
that Mike Pence may be a senior fellow?
Correct. And that the owners of Parler may be heavily invested in. The people who are taking money from big tech, Google, Facebook, all these guys, they plow money into the American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation and Cato and all these guys who come to the conservative audiences with begging bowls in hand and then turn around and do their bidding and their lobbying for them, for the big tech firms.
Look, we've got Trump power. Has been his ability to disintermediate the media has obviously been curtailed.
Yes.
Daily Mail's mocking him today, saying he's writing down notes to have staff tweet stuff out because he can't do it. I hear when I look at these things, I'm talking to CEOs at Gab and others. I actually think we're coming on a renaissance. You see Parler shut down, but there's a lot of good news out there, and that's one of the reasons I want to bring you on. You're at the cutting edge of this. Tell people out there what to look forward to. Here's where we're going. This is not all clouds. You got a lot of smart people on the right. There's capital been applied. Not enough. More's coming. But tell us what's out there.
Well, look, first, the upside of what happened on January 6th was that it actually forced big tech to reveal their plan much faster than they wanted to, right? They were going to cancel everybody gradually. It's so easy to sit there and be like, this one guy, that one guy. But when that event happened, they canceled everybody all at once.
You made the movie about that.
Yeah, it's an overreach. And I think the thing is the reason it's an overreach is it backfired because the president has been saying, big tech's after you. They've been saying, no, we're not. And then they canceled everybody. So in that way, everybody became aware that this is not just a bunch of people sitting in the basement with tin hats, right? We talked about this 2 years ago in the movie, and people said, well, it's not a big deal. Facebook's friendly. The hand has been forced. But it's not just been forced to reveal the plan. It's also, look, America is a country of innovation. We are innovative. We put people on the moon. We build electric cars and cell phones and all these things. And so people are now moving. They are moving to get things done. And you have really interesting decentralized platforms that are coming to bear. You have new messaging technologies that are coming to bear. And the thing is like, there's the Fediverse. The Fediverse is a system of decentralized apps that are alternatives to, say, Instagram. You have Mastodon, which is Twitter.
Can you put that in English?
Sure.
Fediverse. Can you put that crumbly Greek cheese?
Can you put that in Boomer?
Absolutely. So, for example, there's a whole bunch of decentralized technology like PeerTube, and that's an alternative to YouTube. There's a Pixelford, which is an alternative for Instagram, and so these things are being developed. These are protocols that anybody can take in and build out.
These other technologies, Twitter and Google and all, YouTube, did they have such first mover advantages that we're essentially you're going to play in a ghetto? You're going to be ghettoized. So is the right ever going to get a sense of being either allowed back in on a regular basis, saying what they want, or these other platforms become big enough that they have more than just people on the right or the hard right in them?
Look, the platforms are problematic now. The real problem, the two big problems are Apple is the Death Star because they control the hardware. So even if you do make another platform, they can blow you off their phone. So that right now, in my opinion, is the biggest problem. As for alternative platforms, we're going to have a lot, and they're going to be great.
Okay, we're going to hang over. I'll come back on Apple. Apple, the one closest to the Chinese Communist Party.
And you can download the latest National Pulse podcast on Apple. Right, for now.
Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return with Matthew Taylor. He's a young filmmaker. He's been talking about this topic for years. Now he's finally getting a real hearing because it is upon us. Cancel culture is here. He told us a film back in 2017, I think, called The Creepy Line, that it was upon us. Raheem Kassam, Stephen K. Bannon will be back in a moment.
taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
You know, as a sanctioned individual by the Chinese Communist Party, I can tell you one of the big concerns people have had, all those people that are sanctioned, Pottinger, Navarro, Pompeo, one of the biggest problems we always had was Apple, right? Apple. And their relationship, their symbiotic relationship with the Chinese Communist Party and their addiction to the manufacturing base and the labor of Lao Beijing. You just said something. The live chat's already blowing up. What does it mean? It's the Death Star. Talk about that.
Look, Apple is the Death Star because they can cancel Facebook. Because at the end of the day, what do they just sell 80 million of these for their quarterly returns, right? And that means the only way onto this device
that
is
would be
through
for
the
our
App
podcast.
Store.
That would be the iPhone.
iPhone.
Right.
Or iPad. The only way onto the phone is through the App Store, which means you go through a rigorous process of up or down, right? And the thing is in the context of Parler, they blew them off the platform. And of course, Amazon followed up by blowing them off the servers, which actually was an unprecedented move. So the thing is Apple is able to cancel anybody they want. But the trick is, Apple's very smart. They've always said, well, look, we're exclusive. We cancel people all the time. Not everybody's allowed on, say, like in the Google store. And so at the end of the day, Tim Cook holds all of the marbles. Facebook's having a fight with them right now. Facebook will not win that fight. Right, because Apple could just flip a switch. They don't need them.
As a business model, it clearly works, given the market cap of the company.
Yeah.
It's trading multiple. I mean, look, on one level, you can't argue with it. We argue from a national security and an economic nationalism. But as it's currently constructed today, the business model is working, and they are so dominant across the board. You agree?
Well, absolutely. Look, we like that experience. They have created the perfect experience by limiting certain apps. You go on the Google Play Store, and there's constant, all sorts of spyware and things. That isn't in the Apple Store. But they can actually hold an update to your app if you don't do something they want. Let's say you don't add a certain group or something like that. They can say, well, we're just going to hold your update and hold your app up.
Go. You said the new federalism. Talk about the Fediverse. What is that? And how's it going to impact people's lives that watch this show or listen to this show?
Look, there's this whole series of new applications that are decentralized. These are servers that connect to each other. And what's really interesting is it creates a federated universe of all these different apps that either replace Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and they have millions of users. They've been around for a few years, but now they're taking a bigger active role and alternatives away from these platforms that spy on you, collect your data. And the best part is that people can go out and take these protocols whether it's a Twitter protocol like Mastodon, and build their own instance. In fact, Gab actually went into the Fediverse for a while. And so this is just the beginning of what could be a renaissance of technology. I say this, because of what happened with Parler and because of what happened with Apple, people should take their digital identity and they should spread it out over as many platforms as possible. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So as these new platforms come online, you should spread that digital identity around.
There's been some, Raheem, jump in here. What I've heard, and look, this is the thing I'm least expert on, but people would complain that Parler was a little cumbersome, that Gab's better, that Telegraph in the live chat even has a better. Real America's Voice is doing their live chat. Telegram's got one. Do you see these technologies, and particularly on the conservative side, open to conservatives and to the Trump movement people? Do you see these things getting better right now and better quickly enough to make a difference, or are people just going to go through a year or two where you're just kind of on a desert?
I think you're going to have a number of platforms that sputter out. I think, look, you have to consolidate everybody. The big issue right now is advertising about your platform. If Facebook does not allow conservatives or Republicans to advertise a message, how do you advertise? They're one of the largest media buyer companies in the world.
Is this why all the influencers, Fog City crowds getting crushed on Instagram and others?
Sure.
Because they can't get the advertisers. The way they do the algorithm, they're pushed down. They don't have it as much as anymore. Is this Is that an act of commission, or is that because some algorithm?
Look, we made the film Riding the Dragon about Hunter Biden, right? We had millions of hits with The Blaze.
We premiered it here.
We did. And the thing is that, we were told that there was a thumb on the scale. It should have been retargeting when you have that many millions of views, and it just wasn't retargeting. And so, yeah, it can be algorithmic. The problem is there's no transparency in how it works, right? And so it will be difficult to get the audiences on board if you can't even tell people it exists. That will be the biggest problem.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you about what you're working out. Raheem, real quickly, is out in the mainstream media, is there any outrage about Hunter Biden? I mean, I can imagine if Don Jr. had taken a $2 million advance from Simon & Schuster in the first 10 days, and I know it's not going to be fair, and I know people are tired about talking about hypocrisy, but has the mainstream media said anything about this Hunter Biden situation, particularly given the hard drive from hell? And forget the pornography and forget all the salacious stuff. I'm talking about the receipts, and the wire transfers and the deals with the Chinese Communist Party and people that are clearly not our friends or allies of the United States or the American people or the Chinese people. Any outrage at all?
Just want to remind you that nobody now claims that hard drive is fake. Right?
Zero. Or Russian information op.
Correct?
Right. 100%.
That's really important.
That's good. You're good. Yep.
No, it's really, really important for the audience when you're now going back and communicating with all these people that maybe cut you out of their lives or had raging arguments with you over the dinner tables. Go back to them now and go, hey, are they still calling that hard drive Russian disinformation? Oh, no, they're not. I actually had mainstream media journalists come over to my office and assess the hard drive and say to me, Raheem, this is clearly real, but my editor will not let me write about it. So there is obviously no backlash about this Hunter Biden thing. In fact, I remember when Donald Trump Jr. wrote the book, they lashed out at him because the RNC was advertising the book to the RNC mailing list. And there was some, whatever, right? Nothing about the Hunter Biden thing.
There's a huge firestorm about the RNC.
Huge.
Yeah,
huge. And by the way, I do not think we should it is tiring, but I do not think we should tire of labeling the hypocrisy.
Okay.
Because it's going to be every single day, and they will expect us to tire of it.
Okay.
We can't. We have to point out every single one.
Your work. You're the best young conservative filmmaker out there. What are you working on? And how do people, you got about 30 seconds, and how do people get to your work?
Look, right now you can get the Creepy Line on Amazon and iTunes. We did a project on the Electoral College, which is very important. Huge safeguard, an Electoral College story. It is on Amazon. I know, ironic, but Amazon is actually very friendly to some of this content.
Also, Riding the
Dragon is on YouTube for free. You can see it in
great
6 parts.
Great podcast you did yesterday.
Great podcast.
We did a great podcast with
Raheem's
Raheem.
podcast, amazing. Do you have a website? Any website to go to? Twitter?
M.A. Taylor Cinema on Twitter.
Okay. Tomorrow morning, massive breaking news on the 10 o'clock show. Things are changing tomorrow. See you then.